Before I look at those two documents, I want to just go over briefly what I have on the board with you here. If in your work you are asked to be a part of the decision-making and to decide whether or not certain type of thing is about ready to be manufactured or sold or whatever. And the question is, you have to find out, is it legal? And so what is the standard to figuring out if something is legal or not?
The usual practice.
No. No. What are you going to go to when you're trying to find out if something is legal? Where?
Oh, a lawyer, an attorney.
Well, or what's the lawyer going to use to
Consult the
figure
law.
out whether something is legal or not?
Consult the law.
The law. The law. And what are the four sources of law in the American society?
Constitution,
Legislation,
legislation, courts.
I want to hear, you're all right, I want to hear from somebody in the back of the room. Anybody in the back of the room have, just give me one of the four sources of law.
Constitution.
Where?
Constitution.
Good. How about over here? Does that mean you don't know? Or you're just afraid to answer?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Well, you were too busy talking.
What is the
I'm gonna have to separate you two if you continue. The question is, what are the four sources of law in the American society?
legislative bodies?
Legislative bodies, good. Anybody else? Have we got two out of the four? Courts. Anybody else? The last one. Administrative agencies. Okay, so I'm just gonna put four. You know what they are. And what is the consequences if the law is broken?
There are civil and criminal consequences.
Sorry,
Punishment,
punishment. Now, of course, if the law that you get caught in being punished with is a civil law,
and criminal.
most of the time it's money or a fine. If it's a criminal law, then it could be as much as going to jail. Now, last week, the chapter provides information that historically, this was the only concern that business owners had in the operation of the business. They could do anything as long as it was legal. And the last 25 to 30 years or so, there has been another standard that's also now come into the picture that they have to look at, and that is the question, ethics, or is it ethical? And so the question again, I ask you, what is the standard of any ethical decision?
Moral belief of what is right or wrong.
Yes, morals. Remember, morals are things that you learn as you experience life. At a very young age, you begin to develop just a few morals as to what is right and wrong behavior. And as you grow up and your horizon expands, you experience new and different kind of morals than perhaps what you had as a child at home. And so you take on some different ways of thinking about what's right and wrong behavior. Have you found that to be true in your own life? You find that the things that you think about right and wrong have changed over the years? Have you found yourself accepting conduct or engaging in conduct that maybe you wouldn't have engaged in when you were 12 or 20?
Or vice versa.
You think it reduces too?
I think it's, as you get older, you find behavior that you found before that you can no longer
You
tolerate.
can't accept?
Yeah.
Okay, so it is changing depending upon how much experience you have. Well, when it comes to the morals in a decision-making, of course, if it's just one person coming up with the answer, then it's just that person's morals. And if it's a group of 7, then perhaps you're going to have differing viewpoints on what might be right and wrong, considering the idea of what is moral. Now, ethics, of course, or ethical, is more of a reasoning process. It's a study that looks at the morals of a particular community and comes up with a decision as to how that particular community uses its morals in making its decision on right and wrong. Remember, the law tells us what's right and wrong, doesn't it? So does our morals, so do our morals. So what are the sources of these morals? Where did we come up with these things that we have with this system
Well,
deals with right and wrong
The
behavior?
Bible
The Bible?
could be,
The what?
Bible?
Yeah? Why don't we'll just call all of that religion? That religion.
Yeah, all the religion.
Because there's also the Torah and the Quran and probably some other written religious belief systems too, that's used to teach us those morals. Any other source other than religion?
Media.
Media? Yeah.
Parents.
Where?
Family.
Parents.
Parents, sure. Starts right off pretty early. Then our peers, the people we hang out with. If we're in a gang, be surprised how quickly we adopt the morals of the gang. But if we're in just a nice little social group, we also adopt to the morals of that group. Sometimes we give in, even when we know we don't really want to do it, just because we want to stay a part of the group. There are several other sources of those morals, and I don't have to put them here. I think you get the point. I think you understand that. And then, of course, the real question is, what happens if you break a moral? What happens if you break one of those standards about right and wrong behavior?
It's shame, guilt,
Well, let's just put it again.
Pain.
It's still punishment.
but other sort of punishment.
A little different kind of punishment now, right? So what are some of the differences when it comes to unethical conduct? Guilt,
Shame.
right?
Embarrassment.
Embarrassment,
Mm-hmm.
you can even be kicked off the team.
Banishment.
Get too many yellow cards in a game, you're off the game. So, number one, always. Number two, more recent. But both are now, today, very important considerations in the business environment. There was a meeting this week up in the San Francisco Bay Area of a group of tech companies. I can't remember the name of it. They had a big, long webcam. And on the agenda for the meeting, one day during this week that they're going to be meeting, is a meditation period. And they're going to be teaching meditation. They have hired several Buddhists to come in to do that. And then another item on the agenda, it deals with health. And they're gonna be providing some information about healthy eating. Now, those kinds of subjects, social items that would have never been thought of 25, 50 years ago, but they now have become somewhat of a norm in a lot of companies. Let me ask this question this way. Does getting an A in a college ethics class guarantee that the person will make a good ethical decision as an employee of your company?
False,
No.
Hmm?
false.
Probably not. You see, it's one thing to be able to learn principles and repeat them back in the proper order so you get a good grade. It's a little harder when it comes time to putting it into real application, especially if your job is on the line. And if you're the one that has to tell the boss, I'm sorry, but to me, this is unethical about what you're ready to do, you're risking your job. Because your boss could very well say, well, then I don't want you working for me anymore. I'll find somebody that will accept my position. And so knowing or risking that, you may very well take a different position in your decision about that particular subject. Now let's look at this review real quick. And I'm not going to read to you numbers 1 and 2. Those are somewhat already discussed. You can look at them more yourself. I guess I have to do number 2. The difference between right and wrong behavior from an ethical viewpoint and the legal viewpoint is found in the enforcement of the behavior or the punishment if the right and wrong behavior is broken or it is breached. Now, what is the difference? And that's pretty much what I talked about here in matters of, if you break a law, you can be punished or held liable for money damages. However, if you do something immoral, you cannot be punished in the same manner, but you will be punished in the manners that we talked about. Now, number 3, ethical reasoning relating to business has been characterized by 2 approaches. And what I asked you to do last week was, in this question, is to read the book, read the authors, and see if you can come up with the 2 principal ways that business have developed the way they think ethically. Now, the authors of your book do give you 1 or 2 other things that they found, but 2 primary ones that I want you to be aware of. Did anybody come up with either one of them? Okay, the first one is what is called duty-based. You haven't written it in there, then that's letter A, duty-based. This is in the review from the handout from week 6.
The other one, the outcome based?
I want to get that for everybody's on the same page. I got too many people flipping pages. They don't know where I am.
Exactly.
Well, where are you? Where am I?
Well, that's
Right
what
there.
I want to know.
Right there, number 3.
Right
See
here.
number 3?
Right?
Duty-based. This ethical reasoning is based upon what is said to be the nature of the act. You can circle the word nature of the act. The letter B, or the second major kind of ethical reasoning that people who have studied this have looked into the business environment and have seen the way businesses make ethical decisions. The second way of doing that is called outcome-based. Outcome-based.
The least bad, is that?
Outcome-based. What?
Is like the least bad for,
Well, I haven't got finished yet. This is based upon the consequences of the act. So the duty-based is based upon the actual nature of the act itself. It's either right or wrong. Whereas the outcome-based isn't focused on the act itself, it's focused on the consequences of the act. Number 4. The duty-based ethics can be based upon religious precepts or philosophical reasoning. Religious precepts or philosophical reasoning. Either basis includes the implication that human beings have basic rights, and the key factor in determining whether a business decision affects others can be on how it affects their rights. You see, by the use of the word duty, it also, what's the opposite of a duty? If you have a duty to do something, somebody else has a right to receive what you have to do. And so the duty-based ethics looks upon those that are going to receive what you're about ready to do and realizing they have a right. And if you don't do your duty, then they don't get their right, or their right has in fact been broken. Utilitarianism. This is another name for outcome-based. It's a big name. Outcome-based is, to me, more acceptable. At least you can spell it easier. This is a philosophical theory first developed by a guy named Jeremy Bentham. Circle the word first, and then point to his name. Then it was further advanced by a guy named John Stuart Mill, both philosophers. Now this focuses on the consequences of the action and not on the nature of the action itself or on any pre-established moral values or religious beliefs. You see, the duty-based is based upon either religious precepts or philosophical reasoning. If it's religious precepts, and we'll just use the Bible, if the Bible says something is wrong, then that's you have a duty not to do it. And there's no thinking about it. You just, if you know that that's what the Bible says about it, or what God says about it, then you won't do it. The nature of the act itself is wrong, so you won't do it. Whereas the outcome-based doesn't pay much attention to the nature of the act, looks at the consequences more than anything else. Under this theory, the outcome-based, the action is morally correct or right when, among the people it affects, it produces the greatest amount of good for the greatest number. Applying this theory requires the person to do 3 subjective assessments before acting. Now, subjective means where do you do your subjective assessments? We all do it. Where do we do it? It's what we do in our mind. It's what we think about as we're about ready. Oh, by the way, let me ask you, is just thinking about something wrong? Wrong?
No.
No.
No. When does it become a wrong?
When you do it.
You act on it.
When you do it, when you act on it. So now when we come to either one of these 2 bases, duty-based or outcome-based, requires some thinking. Most of us do some subjective thinking about the act we're about ready to do. Very few of us have a gun held to our head and made to do something, even if we, in that case, we're not acting at all. It's somebody else that's acting through us. Well, applying this subjective reasoning to this outcome-based requires 3 analyses. Number 1, or letter A, quick determination. You can just write determination of which individuals will be affected by the action in question. Which individuals are going to be affected by the action I'm about ready to take. Letter B, I've given it to you. You do an assessment of the negatives and the positives effects or of alternative actions on individuals affected. This is kind of the cost-benefit evaluation. In other words, you add up, you think about in your analysis, you think about the negative effects of your action, you think about the positive effects of your action, and you use that in your coming to a final decision in this outcome-based, and then last, a choice. You make a choice among among the alternatives or alternative actions that will produce the maximum societal benefit. Now, let me tell you that this outcome-based thing is not a bad. It's not bad in and of itself. The goal is to reach a decision to act in such a way that it produces the best for society. Whether it's a society of 100 or a society of 10 or maybe just 2. Well, without spending a whole lot more time, and just what little information I've given you about these two methods, which one do you use in your own life? Because you'll use one or the other. Is your life standard of conduct based upon some kind of religious beliefs or philosophical beliefs? Or do you do anything you want, but before you do it, you evaluate the action to see whether the outcome and who it's going to affect, making sure that you're trying to do the best for everybody involved? Do you do this analysis every time before you act? I think that I think a lot of people use one or the other. A lot of people use both. They may consider their duties as imposed or required by their religious beliefs, but then they go ahead and act anyway based upon the outcome. I hate to say it's most of the time, or a lot of the time, it isn't based upon what's going to be best for society, it's going to be based what's best for me, the actor. What do I get out of it? And who is going to be affected by it? And the fewer people that are affected, the more better I like it. See what I'm saying? What did Bill Clinton think when he had his little affair with Monica? Which ethical